Hello everybody, welcome to the third show of Smart Insights Improving Digital Performance Summit 2020. My name is Lewis Dormer, I'm a Digital Marketing Executive here at Smart Insights, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out today to join us for the webinar. For anybody who's joined us at previous webinars, perhaps at our January Trend Summit, welcome back, and for anybody new to the summit, we'd like to wish you a very warm welcome. So first up, just a quick word about who we are. We're here to provide you as marketers and business owners with the skills, knowledge, and importantly, the tools you need to experience success in learning in your careers and in business. We just heard from Adobe and 247 Commerce, who are covering customer experience. For now, though, I'm joined by Mark Taylor from eSales Hub. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Lewis.
So before I hand over to Mark, just a quick spot of housekeeping to run through. Please send through your questions in the comment box on screen at any point. We'll try our best to cover as many as possible at the end of the show, but failing that, we can also get back to you directly by email. So however specific the question, please feel free to send it through. You can download the slides directly from the BrightTalk webpage in the Attachments tab, which a few people already have done, and they'll also be available on the Smart Insights slideshow after the show, so there's no need to worry about jotting down every single detail as we go along. That's all from me, so I'll hand over to you, Mark, and everybody enjoy the show.
Thank you, Lewis, and thank you very much for inviting us on for today. So today what I'm going to take you through is how you can improve lead quality with AI-powered call tracking. So I set up eSales Hub about 6 years ago, purely because I realised how valuable calls were. My background is that I was marketing director of Hilton Hotels. I then moved to Virgin, and I was commercial director of Halford's Auto Centre. And I was charged with driving website sales. And we created a fantastic site. We took the site from 6 million quid to 80 million quid in 12 months. And it was about driving bookings online. And it was only one day when I was actually in one of the Halford's Auto Centres that I could hear the phone ringing. And it was ringing off the hook. And I was thinking to myself, are any of those calls being generated, via the website? Because we were promoting the telephone number of the auto centre on the webpage, but we weren't attributing any of those sales or even any of those calls to any of our marketing. And I'll be quite honest with you, I figured that I could potentially be missing my bonus if I didn't track it. So as I started to move through my career, I was looking for solutions that would give me an answer to the problem of how can I make sure that all the sales that I generate are attributed to my marketing spend. And one of my, I guess one of the good things I've done in my career is it's not just about finding those channels that work really, really well for you. It's also what I call negging out, so negating the keywords that don't work, or getting rid of those channels that, they might drive visitors or they might drive inquiries, but they don't actually convert, and getting rid of that wastage, which is why I've started to develop eSales Hub. And it's only recently that we've actually added AI to our capability, because it gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more visibility. A lot of people, say to me, why focus on calls? Surely the drive to transact online, everybody transacts online, so surely calls is a dying business. But actually 65% of people, according to Google's data, prefer to contact a business by phone than form fill. And I liken it a little bit to my daughter. When my daughter, she's 14 years of age, 14 going on 21, I should say. And when she's in a bedroom, if she wants something urgently, she'll literally call me. And when I say the word call me, as in she's only in the next room and she'll call me from her mobile phone. If it's not urgent, she'll text me. And I think that is the way that contact is moving forward with people. Is I don't think you're ever going to see a sudden drop-off in calls. I think you're always going to get them. But the key to it is understanding why are people calling you, because it could be a multitude of reasons why. So this is the bit of audience interaction for you. So I've got a question for you that I'd like to ask, and hopefully by the power of technology of this fantastic webinar, we'll be able to get you guys to vote. Well, I'm really interested in it. How much of your marketing reaches your intended audience? So you can start voting now. So does 100% of your marketing reach your audience, 70% of your marketing reach your intended audience, 55%, 25%, or none? So if you'd like to vote now and give me your view on how much of your marketing reaches your intended audience. The reason I ask this question is that, as I say, my philosophy or the way when I was a marketing manager or marketing director, I looked at things. It was, yes, let's focus on the stuff that works, but it's also making sure that you get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. And particularly with things like AdWords and Bing, I found that actually optimizing campaign, was as effective as adding keywords. It was increasing bids. So I'm just going to give you about another 5-10 seconds to put in your responses. Already it looks like we have a clear winner. So that from the poll and the answers that we've just got, it looks like 50% of people believe that they're only 25% of their marketing reach their intended audience, which that to me says that there's a lot of wastage. And actually, when I hear that straight off the bat, I think about, right, how can I optimize my online marketing to make it more effective to reach my target audience? So thanks very much for voting. Really appreciate it. So this is an old quote, and I roll this out in front of a lot of people. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half. So John Wanamaker, it's a quote that's about, I think it's literally about 100 years old. But it's actually very, very relevant today because Nielsen actually have estimated that 45% of online ads don't reach their target audience. So if you're trying to optimize your campaign, obviously the more people, relevant target audience that see your advert or your online marketing, obviously the more effective that's going to be. And I think the key thing about being able to track calls is being able to identify and categorize calls so that you can identify those that actually want to buy from you and your more powerful keywords, your more powerful channels, than those that don't, and they're just simple service calls. But from the poll you guys have answered today, it kind of suggests to me that actually you think that even less is effective, which is interesting. So why do we focus on the phone? I've already mentioned to you about user behavior, and I've given you the example of my daughter, but I thought I'd just throw out some stats for you just to give you a bit more an idea about why it is so key. So this is Google's data. They believe that 70% of mobile searchers use click-to-call to contact the business. I think that's a little bit skewed, if I'm totally honest with you, by local search, because I think the local search, a lot of people call directly off Google My Business or off the landing page itself. But as you can see here, mobile users is exploding. It's now pretty much half the traffic or half the searches on Google. So it's a massive segment of the market. 57% of people called because they want to speak to a real person. And I think that's quite key because there are always, particularly when there's variables in a transaction. And I always remember one of the first calls that we had for one of our conveyancing clients. So someone who's wanting to buy a property in the UK and they want to, get a legal representative do all the paperwork for them. I always remember the first call, the woman phoned up and she said, "Oh, hi, I'd like to buy a house and I need to find a conveyancer." Great, you're in the right place. And she said, "But I've got a problem." And she said, "Oh, what's that?" "Well, the person I'm buying the house from, they're in prison." "Well, that's not a problem. We can send them the paperwork. No problem at all." And the second question she had was, "Well, the problem is that person is actually my ex-husband." And she thought that she had a problem, and actually it was a dead easy transaction. They conversed her straight away on the call, but that variable in a transaction, that difference, if you like, you can't necessarily get that across in an online booking or a form fill. You physically got to phone somebody. So we find that call tracking really does work, very well when there's particular variables or people have got questions about the product or service. And then the final stat, which is very interesting, is that sales conversion from telephone calls is actually a lot higher. So as you can see here, Google estimate that conversions from callers compared to online is 18%. So obviously that's a significant increase in sales conversion over online sales conversion. We tend to find that our clients, once we've been working with them a while to optimize their campaign, actually convert our calls or the calls that we generate anywhere between 33% and 50%, which, in today's online marketing, those are kind of stats that you don't, find difficult to believe. But often, these people are phoning you. They found you on the internet. They want your product or service, and they're phoning you. So actually, as long as, you can actually fulfill their requirements, they're actually quite an easy sell to generate. So calls, lots of volume, lots of people want to talk, to people, and they're high converting as well. So if you think about it, there's a good tick in some of the key boxes that you look for. Now, the key thing is, and I learned this very, very quickly when we started to do call analysis at Halfords, is not all calls are sales leads. And the problem I had with previous call tracking solutions is that they just did that, is they tracked the volume of calls that are being generated. And the problem I found very, very quickly that is if you don't categorize the calls that you're getting, you could actually optimize your campaign to drive more non-sales calls than sales calls. And, the process that, the AI process that we use today was actually something that I developed, 6 years ago, and I used to do manually. But, not every single call is a sales lead. On average, we find that 58% of the calls our customers receive are actual sales calls. 29% are calls from customer service from existing clients. 8% of calls are people looking for a job or trying to sell you something. And actually, there is a degree of missed calls as well, about 5%. Some of our clients, unfortunately, have days where they miss up to 20%. But if you're optimizing your online campaign, particularly Google Ads or Bing, and you're optimizing it on call volume, you could literally be optimizing for the wrong type of behavior to happen. So categorizing those calls and categorizing the outcomes is absolutely key to getting your online strategy right. So what does call categorization enable you to do? Well, on the left there, as you can see, we've got lots of squares, circles, and triangles. If you're using call tracking and you're not categorizing those calls, you'll just see 12 sales calls. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all sales calls, but you will see 12 sales calls. Whereas if you categorize your the calls that you're getting, so as you can see here, 4 sales calls, 4 customer service calls, and 4 missed calls, well, straight away, if I can link the keyword that's driven those sales calls, I can increase my bidding. I can go and find more keywords of that variant. Likewise, if I don't want customer service calls and I don't want them clicking on my ad because it's costing me marketing money to generate a customer service call, which I don't want to, it's very, very easy to spot the keywords and the channels that are driving that behavior. Sometimes you might find it as non-brand versus brand keywords. There are certain brand keywords that might drive customer service calls. And again, with that visibility, you can make really, really good decisions on, okay, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to generate customer service calls. I'm not going to generate them so they cost me as much money, and actually optimize my campaign that way. But again, unless you're categorizing the call, it's very, very difficult to optimize your campaign other than volume. And what you could end up doing is actually increasing those customer service calls and spending more marketing money without actually increasing sales. We get a lot of our clients where, particularly where they've got multiple sites or multiple locations or multiple branches, if they're tracking calls on volume, the challenge is that, well, I can see more calls are going into the business, and I can't connect those calls to sales, and I can't see that the sales are going up. So is my marketing working? Am I driving a load of wasted activities we've just described, or is it actually having a benefit? And I'm actually improving, the revenue and the return on investment. And that's why call categorization is so key, because without knowing, what the outcome of each call is, you're just going to drive more calls, and those calls might not actually have any revenue associated with them, and therefore you could be wasting 50 to 75% of your marketing budget online. So it really is key, and it was one of the reasons why we developed eSales Hub, because I was very frustrated that I was sat there, I was trying to optimize my online marketing, and I was doing it based on call volume. And I had exactly that problem. I was driving more calls into our garages at Halfords, but I wasn't seeing the revenue increase on the other side. And it started to get frustrating, which is why I came up with the idea for eSales Hub. And it literally was myself and my business manager. We were sat on the sofa in my house doing some content management work, and we literally came up with the idea of call categorization then, because trying to find out those keywords that not only drive a sale, but actually a high value sale, so that we could enhance or optimize based on even average invoice value, let alone the outcome of the call being either a sale or customer service. We knew that would make a big difference to our revenue, and I'd like to say we did it because we wanted to. We purely looked at this because we wanted to hit our bonus criteria. So that's why we believe that call categorization is so important. Now, what you could do is you could leave your call categorization up to your sales guys. But let's be honest, your sales guys are there for one reason. They're there to sell. And even if they're customer service agents, they're there to fulfill the need of the customer. Their primary goal is not to make, not to track your marketing so that you look good. And I always remember this when I was at Exporter Health Clubs. We had a very sophisticated offline tracking theory. And what we got the sales managers to do was every week they'd fill out a sheet of, right, how many leads have you generated and where have they come from? Have they come from a leaflet? Have they come from online? And we'd launched a new website, and I was the commercial director, so I was responsible for sales and marketing for Exporter. And, suddenly we launched a new website and, we've got a spike in leads that we've generated. This is really, really good. I can see call volumes are going up. I can see the sales managers are telling me that we're getting more membership inquiries. This is, things are going really, really well. Then about 4 months down the line, I had a conversation, just a general chat with our sales team. We were doing these regional roadshows. And I picked on this one specific club in Wimbledon, and I said, God, it's amazing, how, you're getting a lot more membership sales from online you've ever had before. And the sales manager started to smile at me, and I'm thinking, okay, what have I said? And he basically admitted there and then that actually the manual tracking that he was doing wasn't accurate, and he just filled out the online section with more leads because he thought that's what I wanted to see, was that the website was working, and because I was his boss, he was artificially changing the manual tracking. Not in a sinister way, but he thought he was doing the right thing by making the website look good. And that's the problem. If you leave your call categorization to your sales team, it won't be accurate. They could be really, really busy on the phone, taking sales, trying to close people, and to make sure that 100% of the call categorization is correct. In my experience, it never happens. You'd be lucky if 50% of the data they give you is correct, because if you're really, really busy, if you've got a drop-down box and you're really, really busy, it's very, very easy to click the first option rather than to actually click the one that makes the most sense. So, or is actually accurate and is relevant. So when I've used, core categorization models based off, if you like, somebody manually doing it, I've always found that they've led me down a completely different path than what's actually happened. And again, it was a frustration I had with, I can see I'm generating calls, I can see I'm generating sales, but I just can't get that the gap bridged between the call and the sales so that I can optimize my campaign. So why do we use AI? AI has come on dramatically over the last few years, and there's many different elements to it. There's machine learning, where the AI actually learns over time itself, which is a pretty scary thing. But the reason why we use AI to determine the outcome or the category of the call is mainly for speed. You could do this by recording every single call and listening to that call and categorizing it yourself. But I used to do that manually 6 years ago, and just to do 1 day's data for one client used to take me a week. Using AI, we can do exactly the same thing, and it takes 2 seconds. So yesterday, there were over 700 calls that went through our system yesterday, and we've got over, I think it's 240 clients in the UK. And to categorise all of those calls for that volume probably would have taken me about 6 weeks. Yesterday, it was all done in 2 seconds. So we could establish, by using artificial intelligence, by reading the call and putting the call recording through AI, we could understand the words that have been used on the call to define the outcome of the call. So was it a sale? Was it an appointment? Was it a quote that didn't go to an appointment or a sale? Was it, a prospect, somebody that has phoned up that they hadn't converted? And very, very quickly, using AI, you can get an up-to-the-minute picture of exactly what's happening within your business and the insight that you get of what is actually going on the phone. Why are people calling me? Who are my best salespeople? Are we doing the right things? We've got a client at the moment who, because of COVID, they're getting a lot of calls into their branches, but they can't take cash orders. They've got to refer them to their online website. And so they're using our tool to actually understand, well, actually, are the branches doing what we're telling them to do? And it's fascinating, understanding which branches are actually, complying with operational procedure, which ones aren't, what their sales conversion is. And this is data that we've generated within 24 hours. It's given an amazing picture about what's actually happening in the business. And as marketing managers and as marketing directors, my frustration always was I'm always one step away from the customer because I'm not physically doing the selling. Either my website's doing the selling or the selling is being done in person by someone on the phone or someone in a branch. And the beauty of using AI means that at scale, you can analyze a lot of data very, very quickly and get a really good view, even down to granular level of knowing, why are people calling you based on their location, based on, what page they've called from, based on a number of different factors. And even moving on from AI, because we're tracking the user's telephone number they're dialed in on, you can even go to the next level. You can demographically analyze that. So what we're now able to do is, once we've categorized the calls, we can then take that data and you can even do modeling based on demographic profiling. So who are the customers I'm converting versus who are the customers that I'm not converting, and which demographic groups am I almost repelling? So again, going back to that wasted message of how much of my marketing is wasted, by understanding what you're driving on the phone, which is, a big bit of what you're probably generating anyway, you're just not attributing it back to your marketing. You can get those answers in a very granular, clear level at speed, at scale, so that you can make decisions, pretty much on an hourly basis. The way our AI works is that it updates the client every hour. At the end of July, we're moving that to being real time. So as the call is finished, it will immediately go through AI to establish what's actually happened on the call, so it can give more responsive reporting to our client base. So if you think about, from years ago when it used to take me, a week to 6 weeks to do data analysis, and now I can see calls as they come in and get them analysed within seconds, it's a real game changer because the insight it gives you and the ability to optimise your online campaign to not only focus on those keywords and those channels that generate sales, but more importantly, those people that, you aren't converting, all those keywords that aren't even driving a sales call, but driving a customer service call. It can make a massive difference. So, as I've said, the difference really is it really is bridging that gap between what, the customer calling in and your sales reporting, well, actually what's happened, and by being able to attribute all the sales you drive over the phone. So you're probably all attributing your online sales no problem at all because they're dead easy to track, but being able to attribute those sales and, push that data into your CRM system, into Google Analytics, into third-party systems so that you can see the keyword, the source, the time of day. It really enables you to optimize to such a greater level than you've probably been able to before. And it gives you the chance to, as I say, grow sales. So it might be that you're spending a chunk of your budget just simply on the wrong keywords, and just by pausing your PPC on a couple of keywords that are driving customer service calls, you'll probably get those anyway because they'll go to natural search. But what we tend to find is that if the customer's made an order with you and then they're phoning you back because they've got a customer service issue, they'll press the first telephone number or the first thing that they see, which is generally AdWords. Whereas if you take the ad off and actually they go straight to natural search and find you that way, you won't have a customer service issue, but what you'll do is you'll utilize your budget more and again, get rid of a lot of that wastage where, yes, you're driving calls, and if you're measuring volume, you're probably thinking, great, I'm doing a great job, I'm generating 10 calls. But actually, if only 4 of those are sales, then you're not utilizing your budget. But what this also does is it measures your conversion accurately. We find with a lot of clients that because they're measuring on volume, they're artificially lowering their conversion figures. So it's making their marketing not look as strong as it possibly is. So if you're generating 10 calls, 5 of those are sales, and you convert 2 of them, you're talking about a 40% sales conversion. Yet 2 out of 10 would be a 20% sales conversion. So already you're underplaying your value as a marketing manager, as a marketing director, as a marketing specialist, as to how effective your marketing is and what a good job you are doing. And it really is about integrating the data so you get a full view of what the customer service or what the customer journey is. So it really is about ensuring that you've got more data to make a more informed decision so that you can optimize your marketing and get a much better result. So, as we see it, the future of call tracking is using artificial intelligence to analyze the calls, because there's no hard job in the world, and it's pretty mind-numbing listening to hundreds of calls and the time that you'll waste when you could be spending that time optimizing. So it really is about discovering, why your customers calling you. A lot of our clients, that's their number one objective. I'm getting 10 calls a day, or I'm getting 100 calls a day. Why are people calling me? We don't know. We just know they're calls, but we don't know what the different categories are. And then it's using that data to optimize what you do and to really get the maximum for your marketing budget. We tend to find that, that's about a 45% wastage. We tend to find that within the first 6 months, a lot of our clients make big data discoveries so that they can optimize their campaign and not necessarily spend less, but just generate more from what they've already got, or potentially use the data to go to the board to go and get more marketing money and more marketing budget based off the value that you're now driving compared to what you're driving previously. And it's that attribution. It's making sure that you're attributing all of the sales that you're generating, and you're getting the reward for that, because as we've seen, there's a high percentage of people that want to call as part of the transaction and don't just want to transact online. So how does it work? So this is the point where my heart rate rises, because we're going to do a bit of a live demo for you. So I've left the slide in the deck so you can see the different steps that it takes to actually analyze calls. But what we're going to do is we're going to show you it kind of semi-live. We're going to give you a bit of an idea about actually how does the call work. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go to sunny Milton Keynes. So I worked in Milton Keynes for 12 months when I was at Virgin, and in the UK it's a great, I guess you can't call it a city, but you can call it a town. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to open up a web browser, and I'm going to type in the key term unblock drains Milton Keynes. So obviously I'm doing a local search, and we're going to skip past the ads because I don't want to cost us any money, and skip past your GMB, but I'm going to click on the first, which is Dynarod. So Dynarod is a client of ours, and you see that telephone number at the top. Every time that telephone number is called, it goes into our analytics platform. Now, obviously what I've done is I've hidden certain bits of data, because obviously I've got permission from our client to show you this, but obviously not with their data inside. So What we're tracking is the date, the time. We're tracking the caller's telephone number, which we've hidden from you. The connection times, how long it takes to connect the call, the talk time, there's then a call recording. So essentially, if you like, all of this data here is what we would call switch data. So from a call tracking solution, that's probably what you'd get to see. Now, what happens is as you can see here is a list of keywords, and we can actually show the source as well. But where the AI kicks in is here. So essentially what we've done is we've categorized these calls. Now, you can see that the first call is an appointment. The second call is a live quote. So that means that they've actually quoted on the phone, but they've not actually closed that as a sale on that specific call. And then you can see that there are a couple of calls that are marked in red because they're duplicates. So what's actually happening is when you dial the telephone number off the Milton Keynes page for Dino, it essentially is, we're tracking the click. So we've got our Google Tag Manager script. So when you land on the page, we can see where you've come from. We can see your Google Analytics CID. And then what we're doing is we're categorizing the call using AI. And then what we're doing is we've got the ability to then, once we've categorized that call, is attach more data. So you can see we can put in a lost reason. You can see here other columns on the tracking form. Tracking view that you've got here is that we can take a scrape of the CRM system so that although we've identified it as an appointment, a transaction hasn't necessarily happened at that stage, but we can pull the data in from a CRM system or an ordering system or an EPOS system so that we can actually give a true line of sight as to actually what's gone on. And the big thing about this was, and this is what the game changer was for our clients. So again, I've hidden the actual keywords so that you can't actually see their data. But what was interesting is the top graph here is volume, and it's call volume. And as you can see on the far right-hand side, you've got two really, really big bars. Okay. What was really interesting was that those two keywords that were driving probably about 30% of their overall call volume didn't actually drive a single appointment or sale within 30 days. But actually what it was that their third highest volume keyword was where all the sales were coming from. And so straight away what they spotted was that, yes, we're brilliant at driving loads of call volume, but actually 30% of the call volume isn't a sales lead. But they were spending half their marketing budget on these keywords. And so what they're able to do very, very quickly, based on the data insight that they got from us, was that they could see very, very quickly how to optimize their spend so that they drove more from the keywords that drove sales leads rather than spending money on customer service calls, which they were getting no reward for. So straight away, just by simply categorizing the calls, they got the visibility to optimize their keywords, drive more sales. It wasn't a case of they increase, their budget. It wasn't a case of, they spent more money on Google. They had the same budget. It was just about making that budget target more of the customer base that they want to target, more of their audience that would drive physical sales on the phone rather than driving call volume that ended up being customer service. So, straight away from this data, you can see the impact that actually, AI-powered call tracking can have on your marketing spend. And this is just one example. We tend to find that, we do a 14-day trial for clients, and a lot of questions we get is, is 14 days long enough? And what clients are quite surprised about is within the first 24 hours, within the first 3 hours, the amount of data and the amount of insight that they will pick up that they just didn't realise what was happening because they'd never had the visibility of why people are calling them and the stats behind it. It's a real game changer for their marketing budget, but also, that your conversion is way, way better than you think it is. And the keywords that are driving those sales, they're always different than what you expect they are. And I'm giving you an example here of Dino, which is a British gas brand in the UK that we work with. The difference between generic versus location-based search terms is huge in terms of sales conversion. The difference between brand term, which, the brand term on the face of it look like their cheapest source of lead, but actually it's their most expensive because most of the calls that are generated, were actually, customer service calls. They weren't actually sales leads. So it completely spun on its head what they needed to do with their Google spend. So a little bit about us before I take questions. There's a couple of questions that have been asked by the audience, which I'll get to. But essentially, the way we work as a business, there are essentially two services for smaller companies. We offer a fully managed service where we take the risk of Google and Facebook, and you only pay us per lead. And again, you only pay us per lead, not per call. So it has to be, somebody that's requesting your service or product for you to be charged. But you get full campaign visibility, exactly what I've just shown you. Whereas for other companies where you've got your own PPC resource, your own resource internally or through an agency, we have a lot of clients that actually just use our platform to give them the insight that we can gain from their marketing or their existing marketing they're doing already. And so for us, we're very much about generating that data insight. We realise that, there are some smaller companies that actually this is all great, but I just want sales leads. How can you generate them for us, which is our managed service, versus those that, have got the internal resource and actually we just want the insights that we can make changes ourselves to our online campaign. So we actually offer both as an option for you. So that's the end of the presentation. I think we've literally got 5 minutes to go through a couple of questions. So we've got a question here, very interesting question actually. So I'm going to read it out. Will AI be, so I'm just going to paraphrase what it says, but it says, does the AI pick keyword related to sales if there is a wide language width? Does it pick up multilingual calls coming to one number and then categorize? So we have clients based in the UK, Germany and Austria. And what's interesting is that the AI that we use actually learns over time even different accents. So when we first started using it, if you were using a deep Yorkshire accent, Halifax actually used to come up as Holy F-U-C-K, which is a new interpretation of Halifax. And what our AI does, it learns regional dialects. So in Germany, there is a massive north-south divide in terms of not only the language, but the accents that are used. But yeah, the multi-language capability, the reason why we picked Germany as our second language, it's one of the most difficult languages in the world, in Europe. It's quite a strange dialect. It's very direct, as it were. And also the behaviour of Germans and Austrians on the phone is very, very different from anywhere else in Europe. They don't phone on the weekend, whereas here in the UK we do. And but as soon as the doors open at 8 o'clock on a Monday, they're phoning like you wouldn't believe. And Germans, they insure their insurance. They're very, very risk averse. So what we find in Germany and Austria particularly is that call volumes and the percentage of calls versus online transactions is much, much greater because they want that assurance of the service or product that they're buying. So hopefully that answers that question. I've got another question here. If a sales rep has an issue with a customer, will these genuine sales be overridden and genuine calls be forwarded to next in line? Yes. So the way our AI platform works is what we're able to do is to look at customer history. So whether the person has phoned before and actually build up a little bit of a profile about that customer. So often what we find is, we've got a client and some clients take 2.5 calls per transaction. Some clients take 1, some clients take 5. So if you're a mortgage broker, it will take up to 5 calls to actually convert that customer. So you'll see that customer coming in as a sales lead. You'll then see, the 5 calls that are associated with that client, and then you'll see the end conversion. So, our AI call tracking capability does take into account the different customer journeys. A lot of it is in the setup. When we work with a client, it's about understanding their business, understanding their order value, their customer journey. And a lot of our reporting is actually bespoke because, again, per industry, I tend to find that the terminology used is slightly different. And, what we might regard as appointments or might call as a test drive. So particularly within the automotive industry, we work with MG cars. And, it's not about driving appointments for them, it's about driving test drives, because they know that, for every person that test drives a car, they'll pretty much convert 1 in 2. So for them, their key KPI, and we tend to find with most clients, it's just really understanding, what's the key KPI that you measure. And for MG, it's test drives. And so all of our reporting is, right, how many test drives have we generated and how many of those have actually turned into car sales. Another question has just come in. What CRM platforms do you integrate with? So in terms of CRM platforms, so Salesforce, Act, Microsoft, if your CRM system has an API or even a .csv upload capability, we work with homemade systems as well. We can integrate into it, but the main ones off the shelf are the top brands, people like Oracle and Salesforce, Microsoft, those types of CRM systems. But like I say, we've got a client and they've built their own CRM system, and we've built an API integration. So again, it really depends on what you've got as to how we can work with you. We find that actually, pushing data in and out of CRM just gives that little bit more of an edge. So that, okay, fine, we've tracked what's happened on the call, but did it turn into a real transaction? Well, with CRM data, we can absolutely categorically confirm that. So, some of our clients we integrate, some we don't. Purely because they don't have that capability or they're upgrading their CRM system. So another question I've got is, can I trace the end-to-end call? It's an interesting question you should ask, because one of the questions we were asked previously is how do you track users? How can you do that? Essentially, what we're doing is we're using Google Tag Manager and we're tracking the Google Analytics CID. We're tracking that all the way through. So what we're able to see is the complete customer journey. So how they got to you, which pages they went through, and then when did they call you. And it's interesting because for some of our clients, where they've got a lot of locations and someone lands on the homepage, and then how do they end up calling the number? Is it that they go through the site search to find the branch they want to call, or they go onto a specific page? Likewise, with some of our e-commerce based clients, which pages is a customer calling me from? Is it, part 2, 3, 4 of the shopping cart experience? Why am I getting these calls? Why is someone calling me at shopping cart stage 2 as opposed to 3? And what's the difference in those calls? And what language are they using? One of the things that we do is we analyse the words that are used on calls. So, what questions, what words are they using, what's coming up more and more, so that you can amend your copy and your content on your site, so that you can answer those questions and you can drive higher conversion. A lot of that can come from tracking. So it really is end to end. And some clients, we use a last click model. Other clients we use the first click model. Other clients use different attribution models. Again, the flexibility of our system is you can choose. It's all about giving you the data insight that you want, so that you can better optimize your campaign, so that you can make more out of the budget you've got, and you can properly attribute all the sales that you're getting. So you get that reward, and we have found with quite a few clients that whenever they've gone through this, there's a hell of a lot more sales they get on the phone line than they thought. And actually, the impact that their site is having on the business in total is far greater than what they thought it was. So I think that's pretty much all the questions. And Lewis, I think that's us out of time, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Bright Talk will probably be kicking us out very soon. So thanks a lot, Mark. That was fascinating. Really, really interesting. I think the audience probably agrees, looking at all the questions that have come in. Thanks a lot for your time today, Mark.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Okay, so that's the third show of the day wrapped up. The fourth one is coming in thick and fast in 15 minutes, so it'd be great if you join us for that. Thank you all for joining for this webinar, and I'll catch up with you all very soon. Cheers.